Hello and welcome, friends. Today I'm sharing my 7-step cheat sheet that will help you paint beautiful watercolor florals and simply enjoy the process of creating them. I'm Smita Katti, the Shiny Nest on Instagram. Make sure to stop by my blog smilingcolors.com for more tutorials and inspiration. I'll be sharing many examples today in this video that'll give you a few different ideas with the same technique. I've reached for my Tombow Dual brush pens in all of these examples, but you can use any water-based marker or watercolors that you have at home and try this out as well. To begin this tutorial, I'm going to walk you through all 7 steps with this first floral illustration here. This illustration was actually something I created to share at my watercolor florals class at the Pinners Minnesota conference this May, and I simply love how it turned out. I'm hoping that this tutorial will teach you how to recreate this at home for yourselves. So let's get started. Step 1. Sketchbook matters. For many of my illustrations today, I am using Canson 140-pound watercolor paper. I have actually bought several different sizes of this watercolor paper, and I often trim down the paper to smaller sizes and use them as needed. This is my go-to paper for watercoloring with my Tombow pens. Watercolor paper comes in many thicknesses, but you want to choose something that will let the colors blend beautifully and that has a heavy weight. The heavier weight of paper is less likely to buckle out of shape when you add water on top of it. I also use many other different sketchbooks and papers later in this video, and I will link them in the description box below for you. I also have a blog post, so make sure to stop by my blog smilingcolors.com and check out the sketchbooks I recommend. Step number 2. Select your color palette. What I mean by that is, pre-select your color palette before even opening your sketchbook. What I like to personally do is to pull out this color swatch that I have of my Tombow markers, and then I look for 5 or 6 colors that kind of go together. I almost always try to have a green for the leaves and at least 2 colors for the flowers. If you feel uninspired, look around you for inspiration. Look at magazines, maybe a fabric you saw, or open Pinterest and look at color palettes there. Find a color palette that speaks to you that day for your mood, and then select your markers or paints to match those colors. I've started creating and collecting color swatches that I really like, and this also helps me with my future projects. Step number 3. Sketch it out. When I share my videos on Instagram, I rarely show the pencil sketch stage because I only have 59 seconds on those videos. But trust me, I always have a pencil sketch in place. I use a mechanical pencil. This is the monograph pencil that I love, and I lightly draw out the shape and placement of the flowers and leaves beforehand. I often take my sketchbook out to the library or the park and sketch out flower compositions there. I then erase those lines while painting so that there is just a faint impression left. Step number 4. Start with a bold focal point. So you want to start off-center, never exactly in the middle of your page. Using the brush tip of your marker, apply color towards the center of what will be a flower. I start here with my largest flower in a bright red color. This will be my focal point. Then you want to dip a paintbrush in water, and using the damp paintbrush, slowly drag the marker color to form a petal shape. You don't want to have too much water on your paintbrush to do this. And keep repeating the same step till you form your flower shape. Now the Tombow Dual brush pens are water-based, and the color reacts with the water so beautifully to give this watercolor look and feel. That is why these markers are my go-to markers. Now remember to always move your brush from the center of the flower outwards. This way, the color remains darker towards the center of the flower, and the edges of the flower tend to be a little lighter. You want to try keeping the outer edges of your flower uneven and light and airy. The most important thing here, let the water do the work. Don't try to keep painting over the same petal again and again. Just spread the color softly out and then let the water do the work. And because the Tombow Dual brush pens are so vibrant in color, you need just one marker to create a flower here. I love how simple and easy this is. You can add more and more water to create a lighter shade, Or if you want a darker shade, just keep little water on your paintbrush. Please also make note that I always apply the marker color to the paper. You never want to dip your marker into water. That will just ruin your marker and there's no coming back from that. Another thing to keep in mind is the marker color will sit on the paper for a few seconds without being absorbed. In that time, you want to go in, spread the color out with water. If you use thinner watercolor papers or mixed media papers which are not too heavy, the marker color just gets absorbed right away into the paper and you're not able to spread the color with the water like I'm doing here. And that's why I like the Canson 140-pound watercolor paper for this. Number 5. Work in clusters of 3s or 5s. Keep it odd. For a floral composition to be attractive to the eye, you want to disperse your colors around the page. Right now you see I have 3 red flowers already. But look at the way I've placed them on the page. They form an invisible visual triangle. Not only that, the 3rd red flower is kind of falling off of the page. I don't have it in its entirety, and that also adds interest to the page. The visual triangle is a principle used by photographers and graphic designers all the time. It just helps to create a pleasing composition that draws our eye to not just the focal point but also around the page. Now I just added a few orange flowers here to our composition, and again I added 3 of them and they again formed an invisible triangle. Step number 6. Always add leaves. Adding leaves not only enhances the flower's beauty, but the greens and blues will contrast with the flower colors to add more interest and details to the page. Here I'm showing you how you can mix 2 marker colors on the page directly. Apply the marker colors onto the page with the darker marker near the flower and the lighter marker color towards the tip of the leaf. Then you want to start painting over the lighter color first. That's the green color here. Then you paint over the darker color, that's the blue color here, and you kind of flick the brush over and onto the green area. Since the green is still wet, the blue blends into it and now you create a new in-between shade. I'll show you that here again. What you don't want to do is paint over the darker blue first, because that will then just overtake the green and you won't be able to create all those in-between shades. Again, very important here is don't keep going over the leaf with your wet paintbrush. That will just create a muddy color quickly. If it looks a bit streaky or uneven even, I would say just let it be. Let the water do the blending and soften the colors as it dries. You want to also leave like a thin hairline space between your elements so that you don't have colors bleeding into each other accidentally. Now I'm using just the green color here to create more leaves near the orange flowers. I'm making these leaves long and skinny, and this just adds more details to the composition because we're varying the type of leaf and the colors that we're painting. Step number 7. Add details and smaller fillers. Now it's time to fill in all that white area left on our page. You don't have to always do this. I mean, you can just have a floral cluster like I did in this example and add a quote or something to it. But today I want to cover this entire page with flowers, so that's what I'll be showing you. I'm using a lighter pink color and just adding smaller pink flowers around the page. Then I'm also adding smaller orange and red flower buds and having them hang off tiny stems. In whatever little spaces are left, I'm adding small dashes with my blue marker and then painting over them to be blue leaf shapes. This adds a nice pop of color to the page as well. To fill in the centers of the flowers, I'm using a blending palette. This is a smooth, slick surface onto which you can add the same marker color and then pick it up onto your paintbrush. This gives you more control over where and how much paint you add to your page. And that's it. It's time to stop. Now here are more and more examples showing this exact technique. I've sped up these videos, believe me, I don't actually paint that fast. These wildflowers I painted are my absolute favorite. You'll see that I'm mixing a few different pinks in each petal, and that's a fun idea to try out. And also make sure to vary the size of your flowers. Paint some of them to be larger in size and again some of them to be smaller. And I could use that yellow color there over and over again and never tire. Make sure you disperse your color around the paper to get a nice balance of colors. Another example here, I try to limit myself to 5 or 6 colors, especially when I was a beginner. The more colors you choose, it can get a little overwhelming. This one almost is like a rainbow set of colors. And here you can see that for the center flower, I wanted to make it larger, but I let the first set of petals dry before going back and adding another round of petals. And I always add small tiny dots or fillers before finishing off the sketch. Here is another example. I love how this one turned out too. Here I let the green and blue kind of meet in between on the leaf and bleed into each other naturally. This is such a fun way to just let the water do all the magic and create a wonderful blended look. You'll also see that it's important to let elements of your illustration dry before adding adjacent elements, or else you might have some small color bleeds. Honestly, I kind of like color bleeds. It gives a real handmade look to these flowers. But if you don't like them, just make sure that your first flower is completely dry before you go to add something right next to it. Now, okay, if you aren't really into all of these colorful palettes that I've been choosing, I have another example here which has nothing more than blues and purples. It's a jewel toned one, and I actually have only 2 markers for this. I create newer hues by mixing these 2 marker colors itself, and that just brings so much interest and depth to this illustration. For this example here, I am using Strathmore Watercolor cards. These come pre-cut and are absolutely amazing with the Tombow Dual brush pens. In this next example, I did a complete color study of blue with various markers in shades of blue. This is a really fun way to understand color, composition, and let the colors bleed a bit. Since they're all blue colors, the color bleeds softly and it really adds a lot of interest to the sketch. Make sure to stop by my blog smilingcolors.com for more tutorials and inspiration. In this example, I'm actually using another sketchbook with my Tombow pens, and this is a tiny 4-inch sketchbook that I have by Field Artist. It's a really small sketchbook, but the paper quality is great, and look at how well my color spreads. I love the smaller size of the sketchbook. It means I can create a 2-page spread in under 15 minutes and be done. And this sketchbook is the perfect size to travel with. I've lettered about 30 to 40 quotes in this little sketchbook of mine, and I will share a video flip through of all of the quotes sometime soon. Here is another sketchbook that I really love. This is a new to me sketchbook. It's a Moleskine watercolor sketchbook, and once again a smaller size, compact travel sized one. The Tombow Dual brush pen color moves beautifully on this, but at the end of my painting I felt that the sketch looked a little bit too colorful. So what I did was I added a tone of gray onto it. I used a small ceramic dish here. This works just like the blending palette, and I picked up this watery gray color onto my paintbrush to add details onto my flowers. The gray tone muted the color a little bit and also added more details, and it was a quick fix. Tombow recently released new water brushes, and you can see them in action here in this video. For this floral illustration, I'm using a fun color scheme that actually has no green at all. The leaves are all teal and blue, and that turned out just fine. Simple florals with bright colors are my go-to thing, and they're such a joy to paint and always make me smile. Lastly, in this example, I used a completely different paper. This is the Ranger watercolor paper, and I am using the same Tombow Dual brush pens here and the same technique as before, but I feel that the color moves so much differently on this paper. That is one of the things you will actually need to explore and find out for yourselves. Depending on where you live and the cost of paper, try out a few different papers with the same technique to find out what works best for you. I felt that the Ranger paper had a lot of texture to it, and it somehow absorbed the marker color readily. It wasn't difficult to paint, but the color moves just so differently than the Canson paper. But I actually loved how the roses turned out. I think this is really pretty. For me, painting flowers is just soothing, relaxing. It doesn't have to turn out perfect for me to enjoy the process and get to play with some color and water. If you enjoyed today's video and found it helpful, please remember to give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment below and answer this question for me. Why do you want to paint watercolor flowers? So there you go, guys. I've shared a lot of ideas and tips on what works for me while painting watercolor florals. I've shown you so many different color schemes, sketchbook options, and paintbrushes to use. I will list all of the supplies in my new blog post on my blog, smilingcolors.com, and also look for the link in the description box below. Thanks so much for spending some crafty time with me today, friends. I'll see you again soon with another video. Till then, happy crafting!